back to the program. My guest today is an attorney, an author, a political activist, and a publisher. He is the co-founder of the American Values 2024 PAC, Political Action Committee, supporting independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. He is also president of Skyhorse Publishing, a distributor of Simon & Schuster that has produced and published well over 10,000 books, including 57 New York Times bestsellers. He is here today to help promote RFK Jr.'s newest book, The Wuhan Cover-Up and the Terrifying Bioweapons Arms Race. Please welcome Tony Lyons to the program. Tony, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Good, good. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things, but of course, we want to start with RFK Jr. Now, RFK Jr. has written numerous books that have been published by your company, Skyhorse Publishing, some including A Letter to Liberals, The Real Anthony Fauci, and of course, the newest book, The Wuhan Cover-Up, among others. Now, you've also now co-founded a political action committee, American Values 2024, to help support RFK Jr.'s independent run for the presidency. What made you go from book publisher to political activist, and why RFK Jr.?
Yeah, so, for some of the same kinds of things that happened to you have happened to many of our writers, that they've been subjected to hit pieces, that they've been taken off all the major platforms, that they've been vilified in all kinds of ways. So, I saw that they were all of these really serious people, researchers, scientists, doctors, lawyers, politicians, who for some reason in this country were not allowed to speak and were not allowed to be heard. And that the narrative we were getting from the mainstream media was that we as the general public had to be protected from these people. And what I began to learn was that there's this incredible fascism that's growing in this country, and it's being led by people who claim to be protecting us. So they're saying that they're protecting us from conspiracy theorists or misinformation or all kinds of things. But in fact, I believe that they are trying to take over the country, to take our rights from us, to control what we read, what we think, what we put into our bodies, what we eat, everything in our lives. And so, as a publisher, publishing those kinds of books and seeing all of these tactics, it naturally led me into politics, because I don't want to live in a country where books are censored, where propaganda is considered news. And so I'm Bobby Kennedy's publisher, and I've gotten to know him, and I know how sincere he is, how strong his character is, how strong his convictions are, and I really believe in him as a person and as somebody who's fighting for the freedoms that are so important to your viewers and to me. And so that's how I was drawn to him. And I heard him speak many, many times, and I've published, his past, 7 or 8 books. And, seeing that level of integrity, and then seeing the kind of political choices that we generally have, I couldn't conceive of a better person who I would want to be president. So that's what drew me to it. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't think that you should believe something and then not be willing to fight for it.
Gotcha. Well, look, I think RFK Jr. is a great person, a great man. It's interesting how he's vilified by the left now, because again, what was the standard bearer for the Democratic Party? It was a Kennedy, right? Everyone wanted to be a Kennedy, and now you have a Kennedy, and it's like they don't want anything to do with him. He's asked multiple times for Secret Service protection. And of course, they have said no to that as well. So it's really sad, how far the left has gone to where they can't even accept, a moderate version of a Democrat in RFK Jr. He's done some wonderful things. I mean, obviously, he's been an excellent advocate against, forcing vaccinations and of course, mandates and things like that. Let's take a trip down memory lane. You may recall that in the 1992 presidential election, you had H. Walker Bush, you had, of course, Bill Clinton, and you had, can I finish? H.R. Ross Perot, right? Now, that was the Texas oil tycoon, and he ran as an independent. Although he didn't win any electoral votes, he actually didn't get any at all. He did, however, capture 19% of the popular vote. So my question is, do you think that RFK Jr. can duplicate or possibly even succeed that 19%? And also, do you think he can actually capture electoral votes, possibly enough to win? Or do you think he's just playing a spoiler for one of the two candidates? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, just to start off on the spoiler claim, which I've heard many, many times, and Bobby Kennedy has, answered that many times himself. And what he said is that, that's just one of the tactics people use. That he's a very serious candidate. He's polling at between 20 and 24%, which equates to 35 or 40 million people. So that's more than the most that Ross Perot ever polled at.
Right.
And Perot spent much more money, and it was much later in the game that he got to that level. So I think that Bobby Kennedy, after being subjected to hit pieces, pretty much daily for the last 6 months, has still been rising in the polls. And most people in this country have no idea what he really believes and what he would do as president. But one really great poll that came out about 3 weeks back showed that if the only people who could vote in this country were people who were 45 years of age or less, Bobby Kennedy would win the election if it was held today. So he would beat both Trump and Biden if it was right now only up to 45. So the answer there is that the mainstream media has been, giving the public this whole set of lies and this whole narrative about how dangerous Bobby Kennedy is, in the same way that they've done to Donald Trump, that he's going to ruin democracy forever. So they have to ruin democracy now and take him off the ballot in Colorado, in Maine, and give him some of the same kind of treatment that they've been giving Bobby Kennedy. So, so what we're seeing is that the people who claim that they want to protect us are actually the people taking our freedom from us. So I think that's kind of just a smokescreen. But
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that brings me to this question that I'm just thinking right off the bat. We obviously see what's happening. Maine now is trying, or Maine did, but that's going to be overturned. Colorado, that'll be overturned. I believe that the Supreme Court understands that this is opening up Pandora's box, and they're going to have to step in and they're going to have to shut it down. So my question is, as they're trying to take President Trump off of all of these ballots, do you think that they're going to do the same thing with RFK Jr., or do you feel, as I do, at more voices is always better for, obviously, the political realm of things? Do you think that he's going to be able to be on all of those swing state ballots and possibly all 50 states? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that he is going to get on the ballot in all states, but I think that they're going to try very, very hard to keep him off the ballot. And if you look at how the Democratic Party treated Bobby Kennedy when he was running as a Democrat, you get a window into what they're willing to do. And that is that they're willing to do anything, that they don't care about democracy, that they've shown their colors. They did the same kind of thing to Bernie Sanders. Whether you like Bernie Sanders or not, it's never about whether you like the candidate. It's whether you believe in the political process, whether you believe in the Constitution. And then you should want to protect people even when you disagree with them. And Bobby Kennedy's been great with that he has defended Donald Trump, very loudly and very quickly, because he recognized what should be apparent to anybody who believes in democracy in America, and that is that this is incredibly anti-democratic, and that, whether you like Trump or not, he should be on the ballot, and people should be able to vote for him or vote for somebody else. And that's how we decide who becomes president. Not, it's not something that's given to us as a gift or something like that. We don't need powerful people, a powerful media, or politicians or partisans of all kinds telling us who we can vote for, what we can do, what we can think, what we can read. What we need is the opportunity to decide for ourselves.
Amen. Yeah, look, I agree. More candidates, the better, of course. One thing that I will say, and I say this to every single person I talk to, so I'm not singling you out, but we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. That's what
Sure.
it says, a constitutional republic, if, under God. So I always try to, correct people, because I think that it's when you have a democracy, you have mob rule. And in a mob rule, you don't have individual rights. In a constitutional republic, of course, you do have individual rights. And I think that that's why the media, likes to push that word democracy, because again, when they do take away our individual rights, well, hey, you live in a democracy, so what's the deal? What's the problem with mob rules, right? That's kind of how I see it. Do you think he's going to be on the debate stage? Do you think that RFK Jr. will be allowed, if there is debates? I mean, who knows? Biden calls a lid at 3 o'clock, and that's even if he's on the ballot. I mean, who knows? They may pull something at the convention. A lot of people, I had Marjorie Taylor Greene on, and we both agree that we think as though they may pull something like that. But assuming it's him and Trump in a rematch, do you think that we're going to get an opportunity to see all three of them on stage, which of course we would love to see?
Yeah, well, let's go back quickly to your last question. So I do think that Bobby Kennedy is going to get on the ballot in all states, but I think it's going to be a really tough fight, and I think that whether you like Bobby Kennedy or you don't like Bobby Kennedy, you have to recognize that you haven't really heard him talk yet, because he's been vilified, he's been subjected to all kinds of rules and taken off all kinds of platforms, and treated like he's this really dangerous guy. And so the narrative that you've heard is a whole set of lies. And like I said before, the people who have heard him directly, the younger people who watch podcasts and shows like this, those people like him much, much more than baby boomers who have read the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post and watched, ABC News or CBS or NBC. So, there's the possibility that when people really hear him, they will believe in him more than they do now. But, my feeling is that he's going to get on the ballot in all states, and then, after really intense battles. But then what's going to happen is that Biden's not going to want to debate. Trump hasn't debated yet, but I'm confident that Trump would want to get on the stage with Biden and Bobby Kennedy. So, I would hope that the American public gets the opportunity to hear the three of them and to really decide for themselves whose policies, whose ideas they really think are going to be better for them, because most people just don't really know that yet. And that's what's supposed to happen in a constitutional republic.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. I do hope that he is not only on the ballot in all 50 states, but I do hope he gets to take the stage whenever and if ever there are debates between whoever the Democrats finally nominate, and of course, President Trump, and of course, RFK Jr. So let's talk a little bit about the brand new book. I do hope that it's number 58 for Skyhorse, of course.
Here it is.
What's that?
Here's the book.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And when I put this interview together, I will make sure that the book is part of your image, just so you know, sir.
Oh, that's great.
A little bit of extra promotion. So clearly we know that the Wuhan thing was a cover-up. Of course, RFK Jr. has been at the forefront of all of this, going after Fauci and, all the different things that he has done. The bioweapon part is the scary part, because look, Gordon Chang just recently said that they're developing new technologies that go after your brain. I believe the reason they want everybody vaccinated is so that they can put the mRNA technology in the vaccine so they can control our brains. But more importantly, they're also trying to come up with gene-specific viruses that actually attack Caucasian genes more than others. I mean, the crazy things that they're doing, and again, I've said this before, I think COVID was a test run. Can we release a virus and change the entire trajectory and behavior of every single world citizen? Yes or no? Check. Yes, we can. So what's going to happen next is the scary part. And of course, that's what this book is all about. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, what really is scary now is how many people say that they're just done with COVID. They're done with the question of whether there was a cover-up of a lab leak in Wuhan, and what the whole background of it is, what the bioweapons program that has labs all around the world, what that's all, what that means, what's going on in those labs, and what impact that could have in the future. And I think that people ought to really recognize that they don't know the full story, and that they shouldn't want to just move on. They should want to know the truth about what happened, that their lives were changed forever, that there was this sort of, maybe it was a test run, but there's 3 years in the lives of all of us that were impacted so seriously, and we have no way of even knowing what that's doing to the future of our children at a certain developmental age. I mean, the suicide rates are off the charts. Children are just a mess these days. So we don't really know what's happened, and we need to know. So I think that there's this season in the last month or two where people have just really wanted to read. I'm seeing it in book publishing. People have wanted to read romance or science fiction because they just don't want to think about COVID. They don't want to think about politics. But I think come January, you're going to see serious senators like Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ron Johnson, and then people like Bobby Kennedy who are going to really push the idea that we have to get to the bottom of what happened if we ever want to be sure that it's not going to happen in the future, that this is obviously part of some longer term trend, and that if we don't get to the bottom of it, it's going to be something that we'll have to deal with again and again and again. And also just the impact on our rights, on our basic constitutional rights that has come out of this period. That's something that we have to come to terms with, because it's not okay to take a president off of Twitter. It's not okay to take a presidential candidate like Bobby Kennedy off, all the big tech platforms. It's not okay to run lies about Donald Trump or Bobby Kennedy every day in public newspapers. So that's the only thing people can read. I mean, people can't really choose. They can't really think, and they can't decide things if they don't have access to honest information.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with you 100%. I think that more sources, more publications is obviously better for any constitutional republic, of course. I wonder, and I've asked this to Dr. Naomi Wolf and Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. Corey and many others, do you think we're ever going to see the people that were behind the scenes of all of this, EcoHealth Alliance, Ralph Barrick, of course, the Wuhan lab, China, Ukraine's biolabs? Do you think that on a whole, Dr. Fauci, of course, are any of these people ever really going to be held accountable? Most of the people that I've asked that question, they were either saying probably not or possibly. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thought is that that's why these people are so critical. That's why Malone, McCullough, Naomi Wolf, Bobby Kennedy, all of these different people who have been bringing to the public pieces of this story, Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ron Johnson, all of these people who have been fighting to get to the truth, that, it's hard to see how important single people and the work that they do and the struggles that they go through to tell the truth, how important they are. Because I think that we have to get to the bottom of it, and we have to figure out who's behind these things, because that's the only way that we can really protect the future of our children.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. It's not about us, it's about future generations. We want those future generations to live in peace and harmony and prosperity and liberty and freedom. And of course, you know, that's why we do what we do. That's why you do what you do. That's why Bobby does what he does. That's why I do what I do. And we're all going to continue to do that because you know what? There is no alternative. And the alternative is so horrific and horrible that we can't live under that, nor do we ever want to. So I thank you so much for coming on the program. The guest is Tony Lyons. The book is The Wuhan Cover-Up. And then what was the rest of the book here? I have it written down. It's on the other
And
page.
the Terrifying
The Bioweapons. There you go.
Arms
And the
Race.
Terrifying Bioweapons Arm Race. Where can folks go to purchase this book and, of course, learn more about Skyhorse Publishing?
Yeah, they can go to skyhorsepublishing.com, or they can follow me on Instagram at Tony Lyons is Uncertain.
Perfect. And then also, folks, don't forget av24.org, av24.org. That's where you can go to learn more about the American Values 2024 PAC. That is, of course, supporting Bobby Kennedy. Tony, thank you so much for being on the program. I look forward to working with you in the future and certainly having you back on as well.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. God bless.